They called it faith, but faith was only the surface. Beneath cathedrals and monasteries, another empire thrived, one built on secrets, whispers, and fear. Letters sealed with wax, coded prayers, spies wearing the robes of priests. Before the CIA, before MI6, there was the church, and its agents weren't after money, they were after souls. In a world where heresy meant death, information was salvation, where a whispered confession could become a death sentence, where monks who swore silence carried the most dangerous secrets in Europe. But who decides what's true? The man who believes, or the one who listens? Tonight, we enter the shadowed sanctuaries of medieval Europe, where confession wasn't just holy, it was intelligence. The confession, a private moment between sinner and God, or so they believed. Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. The words echo through centuries, intimate, vulnerable, sacred. But in medieval Europe, those words traveled further than heaven. They moved through corridors of power, transcribed onto parchment, carried by messenger to bishop, from bishop to cardinal, from cardinal to Rome. The priest behind the screen wasn't just a conduit to the divine. He was a recorder, a witness, an informant. In the 13th century, the Fourth Lateran Council made confession mandatory. Every Christian, once a year, must confess their sins. It was framed as salvation, but salvation required surveillance. How could the church save souls it couldn't see? Every parish became a listening post. Every priest, a gatherer of secrets. Political dissent whispered in the darkness of guilt. Marital infidelities that revealed noble alliances. Business disputes that exposed trade routes and wealth. The confession wasn't just about sin, it was about information. And information was the currency of power. Look at medieval Europe not as kingdoms, but as networks. Every monastery was a node. Every priest, a connection point. Every traveling monk, a messenger. While kings struggled to communicate across their own territories, the church possessed something unprecedented, a unified communication system spanning the entire continent, from Lindisfarne to Rome, from Santiago de Compostela to Prague. The church spoke one language, Latin, and operated one system of correspondence. Letters moved with remarkable speed through this holy network. A message from Canterbury could reach Rome in weeks faster than most royal correspondence. Pilgrims carried sealed documents. Monks on mission bore encrypted instructions. Bishops reported to archbishops, who reported to papal legates, who reported to the Vatican. The church didn't just preach to medieval Europe. It was the internet of medieval Europe. In the scriptoria, information was replicated, preserved, controlled. The church decided what knowledge survived and what vanished, which texts were sacred and which were heretical, which histories were true and which were forgotten. They built the greatest library in the Western world. But a library is also an archive, and an archive is a database. And whoever controls the database controls reality itself. The monastic vow of silence, beautiful in its piety, terrifying in its efficiency. Monks swore not to speak, to turn inward toward God, away from worldly chatter. But silence doesn't mean the absence of communication. It means the refinement of it. Sign language developed in monasteries became sophisticated enough to discuss theology, report observations, convey complex instructions. What couldn't be signed was written, and what was written could be copied, sealed, and sent. Silence created security. In a world where walls had ears and servants could be bought, the vow of silence ensured discretion. Secrets shared with monks stayed with monks, or traveled only where monks intended. The paradox was exquisite. The men most devoted to withdrawing from the world became the world's most effective messengers. They moved through kingdoms without suspicion. They stayed in every monastery along their route, a ready-made network of safe houses. They were trusted by peasants and nobles alike. They were perfect spies, and they didn't even need to lie about who they were. The year 1302, Pope Boniface VIII issues the bull Unum Sanctam, declaring papal supremacy over all earthly rulers. 1378. Competing popes excommunicate each other's followers, splitting Christendom with written decrees. 1415. The Council of Constance issues a warrant. Jan Hus, branded heretic, is burned. The papal bull, named for the bulla, the leaden seal attached to the document, was a weapon. Words on parchment that could topple kingdoms, launch crusades, condemn thousands to death. Information warfare begins with the control of narrative. The Church didn't just report history, it wrote it. Papal historians chronicled events from Rome's perspective. Church scribes translated and copied texts, controlling what versions survived. Bishops preached interpretations of scripture that aligned with Vatican policy. Medieval chronicler Orderic Vitalis wrote, "The pen and the sword were never equal, unless held by the same hand." The Church held both. It could declare a king legitimate or bastard with a single document. It could rally armies with a sermon or dissolve alliances with an excommunication. It could rewrite inconvenient truths by controlling which manuscripts were copied and which were left to rot. But to wield information as a weapon, you first need to gather it. And gathering it required something more extensive than libraries and bulls. It required eyes, ears, agents embedded in every level of society. It required an inquisition. The Albigensian Crusade, 20 years of slaughter in the name of faith. The Cathars, a Christian sect flourishing in Languedoc, preached that the material world was evil, that the Catholic Church had been corrupted by wealth and worldly power. They lived simply. They rejected Catholic hierarchy. Rome called them heretics. Kill them all. God will know his own. The words, likely apocryphal, attributed to papal legate Arno Amaric at the siege of Béziers. Whether he said them or not, the sentiment was clear. Heresy must be exterminated. But crusades are blunt instruments. They destroy but don't discern. The Church needed something more precise. The Papal Inquisition, authorized to investigate, interrogate, and punish heresy wherever it grew. This wasn't just religious enforcement. It was the formalization of intelligence gathering, the creation of an institution specifically designed to infiltrate communities, collect information, identify targets, and eliminate them. To hunt heresy, Rome needed eyes everywhere, and found them in ordinary believers.